Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. I've just been going over in this essay, I'd like to talk about the commentary in the international media, not just US or Australian, but international media about the deportations from the United States. Now, the globalist media has decided on a set of talking points. The response to the deportations has been scripted and is now being universally applied, whether it's the French media or media in South America, media in Australia. It's all been coordinated and pretty much sticks to the same set of talking points and delivered in the same way. In the United States, though, and even when these illegals are deported back to South America, the American news outlets like to interview these people and interview the families. And so the story will be, instead of doing any objective coverage, the idea that these people are illegal, have committed crimes and are being deported, they gloss over that to the point where it may not even be mentioned in the piece. Instead, they gin it up of little Consuelo's had her father taken away. They live in fear, fear, fear. They don't even go out on the street. Ominous violin music now. They don't go out on the street from fear that ICE agents will just randomly grab them, maybe eat them, maybe tear the babies to pieces and eat them. Panic, panic. So the ginning up and the juicing up of the whole thing is just off the charts. Now, at the same time, they adopt the sneering tone towards the deportation and towards President Trump. So the beginning premise is any deportation, it doesn't matter if the person's committed murder or is in the country, any deportation is not legitimate. That's their opening and beginning position and premise, and they don't deviate from that. So when criminal aliens are deported to Mexico or wherever, the coverage is, and these people arrived chained and manacled like animals that couldn't move, reminiscent of the slave ships of the 1600s. And because Trump says they're guilty, Trump says they're criminals. And whenever there's a reference to the supposed criminality or the criminality, instead of saying, well, this person actually has committed 2 murders, it's been heard in a court and they've already had a deportation order and this and that, the deportation order was issued 10 years ago, instead of stating those facts, which would apply in every case here, instead of stating those facts, they just say, Trump says, personally, Trump is going around door to door. Trump says they're guilty. Trump says, Trump did, and Trump sent the plane. And this is the type of presentation that these media pieces have. So the dishonesty is breathtaking levels of dishonesty. Now, even where they're prepared to concede that the illegals have committed crimes and have done this, have done that, and they're even prepared to concede the illegality, they gloss over it to the extent that, again, even if it is mentioned, they go straight past it and then say, well, so-and-so, Jose is a member of the community, he's loved widely. And if he goes back, then little babies will suffer, and so on and so forth. Quick shot of a little girl in pink and the usual type prop. Little babies will suffer, and so on and so forth. Quick shot of a little girl in pink and the usual type propaganda presentation. But when you go through this, even give it a cursory glance, a different sort of picture emerges. Now, here's a story about a guy who lives in a Latino sort of section of an American city, and he has a little corner store type, taco bar, I guess you'd call it, and it's cited by the journalists as being hugely successful. It's a centerpiece of everybody in the community, if not the whole world, comes to this guy's little hole-in-the-wall taco bar, which is a bit of a stretch to imagine that. It doesn't look like much from the camera panning through it, and they're trying to gin it up as being some fancy sort of 5-star restaurant. But it's they claim that that this guy started a business and he's living the American dream, but he lives the American, but he can't speak a word of English. The people, he doesn't seem to have anybody working there that can be seen, and he couldn't fit many employees in any way. So the employees that he does employ are illegals, which he pays a few dollars an hour to. So he's hiring people illegally. He's in the United States illegally, and he's running a business illegally using falsified documents and papers. So now that's got to be a prime sort of candidate for deportation. Let's just look at it on the basis of the guy's some sort of entrepreneur. Now, um, he's got a little sort of tiny cafe, hole in the wall type. Restaurant would be pushing it too much, but maybe he's doing all right. I don't know. Maybe the business couldn't survive without hiring other Mexican illegals. He's obviously not integrating into American society, given that he can't speak a word of English. Now, they cite him as being, he had a dream, the American dream. He's dreaming. And therefore, how can you steal away someone's dream, ripping their dreams away, just like they're ripping a baby out of the mother's. And so this is the sort of the propaganda delivery of it. And then they interview him. He's talking again. They don't translate. The translation is propagandized up. They're not using they're not saying what he said. My Spanish isn't that good, but it's good enough to pick the glaring errors in the translation. So he says something to the effect that he's concerned that his illegal status may be discovered and he could be deported. But instead they say that, and he lives in fear of evil Trump coming to the. No. He arrived illegally some 20 years ago and somehow has escaped detection. And again, reading between the lines, he's been using fake or counterfeit type documents to get by. Maybe he's a case where it's, well, look, if you've got a successful, viable business, you've been here 20 years, you've got 2 years to pass an exacting English test, and then we'll think of, I would guess, listening to him and the way he talks and his manner, that he's illiterate even in Spanish, I would think. So, but look, maybe he's the best, taco chef in North America or something. Maybe there's something there, but the argument is, well, he's been here 20 years. He's kind of got away with breaking the law for this long. So what if he broke a whole lot of laws? So what if he hired illegal aliens and broke even more laws over there? So what if this? And so what if he got, tax evasion? Who cares? And so they try and gin it up as just a purely moral issue. Here's another one where the guy arrived on a tourist visa as part of the then sort of people trafficking scam at the time, was go into the US and just overstay. They'll never find you. Don't worry about it. And millions of Mexicans did that, or South Americans did that. And they've again escaped detection, disappearing into the Latino Mexican diaspora and working illegally and so on. Somehow the guy gets married and has 4 children. I don't know how he did that, but he doesn't speak a word of English, and neither does the wife. And the kids who are supposedly going to school speak English with, again, a heavy Latino accent. So I don't know. I assume that their school teacher must be Latino, and the other kids at the school Latino, and they only speak English, when they absolutely must and have to, and otherwise they speak Spanish. None of them appear to have IQs above sort of 80. But they're arguing that again, because he's got away with it for so long, so what? He overstayed his visa. The argument is, well, his English isn't very good, and he's not a particularly bright guy. So he just didn't know. He just didn't know what he had to. He didn't know he was breaking the law. He didn't know it was, and so on and so forth. So that's, of course, a huge stretch. But they said, well, look, he's been here a long time. He kind of didn't know. What's the problem? Just let him stay. He's a member of the community. No, he's not a member of the community. He can't speak a fucking word of English after 17 years. What member of the community is this guy? And these are the standard of the stories. Now, and I could go on, but they're all roughly the same. And again, they stick tightly to the script and to the talking points. And on one side, they're saying, well, they've got away with it. What's the big deal? What's the problem? If you want to send them back to Mexico, that just means you're a fucking Nazi. And then, of course, the sneering derision of Trump. Now, whenever these deportations are mentioned, they stick again tightly to the thing, Trump's deportation. Trump says they're criminals. Trump says, and so it's that. But the tone that they use here switches to a sneering tone, and again, that's coordinated and choreographed and done widely. Listening to an English language guy from French TV, and then this reporter from Canadian or English Canadian TV, and they feel the same thing. The sneering tone, Trump says, exactly the same. So again, that's a choreographed, rehearsed, delivered sort of a propaganda presentation there. Now, in terms of the flights that were leaving the US with criminal aliens in it that were going back to places in South America, I don't know, Colombia, Guatemala, or wherever, Mexico. When you've got flights going, you have to have a flight plan, and the airport has to know that you're coming, and these sorts of things. So I'd like to know: did the U.S. aircraft take off from the United States, with the criminal aliens in it to deport? Did it take off without a flight plan? Did it take off without permission to land, and was hoping to get permission en route? Or did it have permission, but there to land, and that permission was revoked? So I had to believe that a plane would take off without a flight plan and without permission to land at an airport. That seems very unlikely. Possible, I guess, but very unlikely. So let's assume they had permission to land in Colombia or wherever it was when they took off from the United States. So somewhere in that flight time of a few hours, however long it was, that somewhere in that flight time, that permission was revoked, and it must have been revoked fairly close to the time it was due to land. So that would have been a political revoking. So someone got to the president of Colombia or whoever, Guatemala, wherever it was, from the time that the US aircraft took off, and before it landed, someone got to the guy and said, no, you have to revoke permission to land. Now, the idea that the president of a country would personally be revoking or agreeing to permission to land suggests a politically charged sort of situation of the nth degree. So who got to the guy to tell him to revoke that permission to land? Was it some globalist goon? Was it who was it? Did George Soros call the guy directly, or what's going on here? So now the other side of it is these countries, they empty out their prison cells, and they empty out the say there's two drug gangs that are in the state of warfare. The government may side with one of the criminal gangs and say, well, the other one, look, go to the United States and we won't touch you. But if you hang around here, we'll kill you. Those sorts of type of, not that exactly necessarily, but those types of sort of backroom, power arbitration type deals going on. So these people are effectively evicted from Colombia, even though they're Colombian citizens or Mexican citizens, wherever they're from. So when the US government wants to send them back to wherever they came from, they go, no, we don't want those guys back. And so there could be an element of that there at play as well. But if the Colombians wanted to be, or any of the South American country, anywhere, so wanted to be clear about this, they would deny permission for the aircraft to land before it even took off. Before even while repatriation of illegals, while those flights were being considered or talked about, or repatriation being talked about, you think these people are going, we're not taking anyone back. So that President Trump's not having any of it, saying, well, no, these are your own citizens. They're here illegally, and you're going to take them back. There's nothing controversial in that. As much as the international globalist media wants to portray it as poor little helpless little they only murdered 3 or 4 people at least. What's your problem? And as much as they want to depict it along those sort of lines, the reality is they should be taken back. Very few countries want to take back the people that have left those countries to go to the US. I find that strange. Why would you care? They're your citizens. Why not take them back? Why would you have a problem with that? I don't understand that. Unless they're criminals or undesirables or political agitators you don't want around anymore, or political adversaries or something like, unless they're political adversaries or something like, unless they're people that you effectively evicted, and this would seem to be, unless they're people you effectively evicted, then why would you have a problem taking them back? But the whole idea of deportation, being arrested by ICE, being an illegal alien, being a criminal illegal alien, this is being glossed over by the international media as being just cruel, heartless KKK, fascist, Nazi, Holocaust type stuff, and again the sneering derision. Trump says they're guilty. I don't know why they want to stick to that, but again, they're all saying it. So obviously, it's a set of coordinated talking points. I look at the numbers here, and they seem to jump around a bit, and it's hard to get clear numbers. But supposedly, there are millions of people who've had court dates set for, say, assessing asylum applications or refugee applications, those sorts of things. And once the people they're allowed to go into the United States, and they're told to turn up for a court date, which they invariably don't do. They've got no legitimate claim to asylum or anything of the sort. So they just disappear into the interior as illegals. And they're supposedly, there's just, in the last few years, there's 1.5 million of these people who haven't turned up for their court dates. So they've arrived in the country illegally and haven't turned up for the court hearing. Or contacted legal authorities to make an alternative date or something like that. So they're all up for. And you look at the illegals who committed crimes, and the crimes can be ranging from murder or something like that to, say, driving with a forged license and forging social security documents, those sorts of things, which are similarly bad. And you come to something in the order of 12 million. Just on that. That's before you just get to illegal people who've done whatever, working illegally and so on. So it shouldn't be that hard to deport large numbers of people. Even if 12 million were deported, then that would be something in itself. But really, they need to go much further than that. And the self-deporting is absolutely critical. Critical of this. Now they could issue English language exams to people. That could be a way of filtering out the people that are there illegally. Because again, I was quite shocked that Mexicans and South Americans who've been in the United States for 15, 20, 25, even 30 years, they can barely speak a word of English. And that's amazing. And so clearly they're not integrating or even coming close. You've been with Tassus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.